what I realized, what kind of caused that turning point was embracing the failure and understanding like there's something to be learned from it and it's nothing to be ashamed of because, at the end of the day, this was my first time going through all this kind of stuff. And I thought my district manager, when I was working with him, he was, always, again, I've always held myself to this high standard. I wanted to be perfect at it from right from the get go. And when I wasn't, I got really bummed out. And once I figured out, like, wait a second, this is part of the process. And if I want to be perfect, like failure is going to be part of the journey. That's when I kind of got over it and started actually learning from them. And I was actually excited to fail at some points.
Well, Tyler McCullough, thank you so much for coming out of the cold in Indianapolis, downtown Indy, to share some insight with us. Welcome to the Edge of Excellence.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it for having me.
Well, it's nice having you. And we're going to get deep into your life and some of your lessons. We're going to get into how do you get a degree in logistics and supply chain management and become an entrepreneur the year after you graduate. We're going to get into becoming the VP of the Great Lakes Division, which is a whole bunch of states, Indy, Kentucky, Michigan, all these different places. At 23, scaling teams, developing young leaders. But before we do that, I got to know, what is your definition of excellence, Tyler?
I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't put some good thought into this. So my definition of excellence is not a destination, but rather a journey shaped by consistent effort to meet higher standards and push past what we once thought was our limit.
You're a believer in karma yoga. You know karma yoga. If you have purity of heart, clarity of intention, sincerity of action, enjoy the process, let go of the outcome. You don't control the outcome. You never know when something crazy could happen. So you're not about the destination. You're about the journey. But you're not going to become excellent if you don't have higher standards than most. You don't push yourself harder than most, and you don't find new limits. I love it. So we need to get back into what development you went through to come up with this definition and to have all this success. People want to know, how do you buy a company at 23 years old? People want to know, you keep moving all over the place and everywhere you go, 3 different moves, 3 different success stories. And I think people want to know, how do you maintain relationships and do all the stuff you're doing? Do well in schools, work in a company, take over the company. We're going to get into all that. We're going to go the slow way. Let's go way back to high school. Before Grand Valley State, what was life like in high school? What were you doing? Were you excellent back then? Were you not? What was going on?
Yeah, I grew up in a pretty tight-knit community, Clarkson, Michigan. Sports was always a big thing for me. Clarkson basketball was crazy. During the time that I was attending there, they won multiple state championships. And I think from a very young age, I was always surrounded around high-achieving individuals. A lot of my teammates ended up going to play Division I basketball. A lot of, my peers that I attended high school with also went to incredible universities and have incredible jobs. So I would say this, going back to the standard, I was always trying to just keep up with the rest, and also get ahead in any area that I really could. And that also meant, from a young age, trying to get into a job. My parents did a really good job with that, making sure that essentially as soon as I was legally able to, even actually before I got my driver's license, I had my first real job working at an Italian chain. And it's kind of embarrassing having my dad drop me off at work.
Yeah,
but
embarrassing. Hold on. Oh,
yeah.
I found it. You get a yellow card. I have a red card too. Red
What's my yellow
card.
card?
You get a yellow card because I'm sorry, we need to back up a little bit. People aren't able to do sports and have jobs at the same time, I thought. But your parents bucked the trend and didn't listen to all their friends and said, oh, poor Johnny works so hard on football, he can't do a sport. Your parents are like, no, you need to do sports, you need to do academics, and you need to have a job.
Yep. Yeah, no, I remember there was definitely some spots in my life where that did overlap, and it was, go to school, then do practice, and then go to work after, and then do homework. And, some tireless nights for sure. And Yeah, no, that was really
So,
important. It taught me
so
a lot.
you have parents that are driving high achieving kids, and your parents have kind of an understanding of what it takes. You got to be a leader, you got to get the team experience, but you also got to work hard. And then you're surrounding yourself at school with you're not with the stoners, you're not with the rockers, you're not with the punkers. I don't know what they're called nowadays. You're hanging out with the people that are also motivating you, and I like the idea of being with people that you try to keep up with. And
Yeah.
I like to surround myself with people doing better than me, and I feel like, oh my god, I better do more here because they're kicking my ass. So that's what you're doing in Clarkson. You're playing basketball, you're getting good grades, and you're working. And you worked at an Italian restaurant, you said?
Yeah. Yeah. Basically all the way up until COVID happened.
Oh, I seem to remember that. All
Yeah.
right. So COVID happened right as you were graduating from high school, right?
Yep. Yeah. No graduation walk, no prom, no nothing for me.
Yeah. So you were 2020 grad,
Yep.
just like my son. 2020 virtual graduation. And I don't know who had it worse. Was it the people graduating in 2020? I don't know. Was it the people that graduated in 2019? It definitely wasn't the 21 people.
Um,
Was it the people that, but I tell you, if you were in COVID and you missed a year of math, I mean, that's got to be, I think the freshmen in high school during the lockdown probably got the worst of it because that's like foundational. So if you're a
yeah.
freshman in high school or in eighth grade or in 10th grade and you got locked down and didn't get good classes and you're in college, go take some of those classes that you didn't get treated right because you need that math. So you do your virtual graduation, your sports wraps up. Did you play any other sports?
No, just basketball is the main one.
And then you had this job while you're in school, so you're working while you're in school,
Yep.
and then full time in the summer.
Yep.
All the little requirements, by the way, we measure it. You got to work 30 hours a week or more. You got to work full 3 jobs or more. You got to get the grades. You got to have the tough major. And what's the last one? What's the fifth one?
30
Or
plus hours, 3 years, varsity sports,
varsity
GPA.
sports. That was it.
There you
Varsity
go.
sports. You got to do it all. So you did it all. You didn't have the research that we have of 30,000 people that have worked in our company that we could measure against. Thank God we asked those questions. But you went to
Yeah.
college and you decided you were going to do supply chain management, which is interesting. That was kind of like the flavor of the decade for your generation. Why'd you
Yeah.
pick supply chain management? And you're not a supply chain manager anymore, but are you glad you picked it? Why are you glad you picked it?
Yeah. So actually, going into college, supply chain was not the initial route. It actually was some sort of engineering. My entire mom's side of the family was engineers, and my classes and my grades were always the strongest in, math and science. And my parents always told me, like, growing up playing with Legos all the time, saying, "Yeah, you're going to be an engineer one day." Like, you'd be almost like a waste of opportunity or talent if you didn't go that direction. So really, from a really young age, that was kind of the direction I thought I was headed in. And I went to Grand Valley, and freshman year was still a complete lockdown, and I was trying out all the engineering classes, and it took me a year and a half to realize that just wasn't what I was passionate about. And I was getting good grades, and that was probably one of the hardest conversations that I had had up until that point with my parents, during that time, because I remember coming to them actually over Thanksgiving break and telling them I wasn't thinking about pursuing the whole engineering thing. And they're like, What are you talking about? You're getting good grades. You were meant for this. You just want to,
That would
you
piss
just
me
want to
off,
spend
by the
time.
way. What does Jake say? That would cause a crash out,
Yeah.
And then as a good parent, you realize I have no control over this, so I better back down on the crash out.
Yeah, yeah. No, my parents were definitely kind of caught off guard. And I think they thought, oh, you just, you're seeing your roommates that are all business majors, and they get their homework done early, and they get to hang out and have fun and, get what you call the college experience, right? And I tried telling them, like, it's not that. I seriously do just, want to do something for the rest of my life that I am passionate about. And supply chain, quite frankly, kind of like you said, it was kind of just the major of the decade. Like, everything was supply chain, with COVID being, the kind of main topic of discussion.
That's what it was.
Yep.
Supply chain became a big issue.
Yeah.
People learned that's why we do this podcast, so people can know what jobs are out there, because the average college student knows of 25 jobs. We're trying to expose to all sorts of different things. So supply chain management became one of the 25.
Oh yeah. And the burst of Amazon. I mean, at the
Yeah,
time there was talks about it ended up not happening, but there was talks about
No, it
Amazon
happened. They bought
purchasing.
all the warehouses, and then a year later, they sold them all. And the
Yeah.
price of the warehouses went up, and then it went down. They took all the truckers. Truckers went from 100 grand a year to 275 grand a year, and then they
Yep.
laid them all off and didn't need them anymore. So they thought it was going to work out better. All the college students geared up, and you're in a good position because you took a bunch of engineering classes. You're good at
Yep.
math. That translates into any industry. So you got a little bit of that math science background. You took the supply chain management classes to finish off because it probably plugged in there pretty
Hmm.
well and you could get yourself out in 4 years, but you didn't really want to do supply chain management.
Yeah, it was more of a logical decision more than a passionate decision. And for me, I just had this kind of mission to figure out what I did like, because for my whole life I thought I had that part figured out. Oh, I like Legos and solving problems and
Yeah,
building
yeah,
and
yeah,
creating
yeah.
things, and I'm going to go the engineering route. And then all of a sudden that world came crashing down, and I was starting to find out, okay, well, what do I do like? And what really speaks to me? And I took those personality tests and talked to advisors and my parents, and supply chain seemed to line up in multiple corners,
Okay.
just as far as like the communication and the organization
But you didn't
skills and
love
that
it either.
stuff. Yeah. Well, and I frankly didn't really even get exposed much to it until after, when I actually got the College Works opportunity. So,
Okay,
but
so
yeah,
you like communicating,
yeah,
you like organization, you like building things, you like problem solving. Sounds a lot like engineering. I don't
yeah.
really like engineering. Okay, but you still like all those things. So sounds like supply chain management. I don't really like supply chain management. And I've heard stories of your parents because you talk about them very often and you talk very fondly. And I hear lots of stories about your dad. What are your parents' names?
Josh and Michelle.
Josh and Michelle. So you come back to poor Josh and Michelle. They send their kid out. They're all excited because he's going to get an engineering degree. I got kids. I got, Jake, he graduated. Kennedy. We have our VP retreats in Boston because she goes
Yeah,
to school there. And we just want to make sure these kids, one, get out of school, but we want the best degree possible. And I want my kid to have an engineering degree, a finance degree. I definitely don't want a business administration degree. Poli sci history is my degree. So your parents have this dream happening, and then you switch to supply chain management. We know he's going to be okay. And then you decide what happened. You started working at College Works, or what did you do before?
yeah, yeah. So I think the number one driving quote, like when I had that conversation with my parents, at first they tried fighting me back and saying, no, like you need to give it another try. You need to do the engineering thing. And I told them like, hey, like it's now or never, because like I've tried it. It's been a year and a half, and I'm getting to the point where if I don't make a decision right now to try something new, then it's going to become expensive, and then I'm going to have to graduate late and take more. So anyway, I made that leap of faith, and what they're kind of ending
Yellow
quote, if you
card.
will.
Yellow card. I'm not giving you a yellow card. I'm giving Kennedy Stewart a yellow card who won't listen to this. She could care
Oh.
less about if she goes to school and it costs more because her mom makes sure that I pay for it, which is bullshit. I like the way you think about it. Kennedy gets a yellow card. Keep going.
So anyway, what they told me, and this did resonate a lot with me, they're like, hey, we don't care what you do next. Fine, if you don't want to do the engineering thing, but you better find something just as good, if not better. And I kind of agreed with them. I was like, yeah, if I could, say that confidently right now, I think we'll both be very happy with the decision that I made. But I didn't know what that looked like yet. And that's when I kind of went on the hunt. And that's when I heard about CollegeWorks.
Okay, so let's
Was
back up a little bit real quick because you have a system here, and I've just been taking notes. So sometimes I look away. Where I want to be looking is right over there at Los Abuelos, our wonderful sponsor, Fortaleza in the United States, Los Abuelos in Mexico. We prefer the still strength. This is a bottle of still strength Los Abuelos. Thank you to our unknowing sponsor, Fortaleza and Los Abuelos. So let's just look at our system that you have here. Basically, if you're trying to figure out what your career is and you go to college, or let's say you're out of college and you got a major and you thought you had it right, you got to start thinking, what am I good at? And what am I passionate about? And so you had your little list. You're good at communication. You're good at organization. You're good at problem solving. You're good at detail. You're good at
yeah,
building. You're good with people. So you kind of have your mental list. I recommend writing it down and then figure out what you're passionate about. Maybe some of the people aren't passionate about dealing with people, but they're passionate about the organization and problem solving. That's a different career. Maybe write down the things you're good at and then rank them in order of passion. And you can plug that stuff into ChatGPT. Now we're pushing, what is this, episode number 183 on the Edge of Excellence. There's 182 examples of what people do for a living. You can listen to those, and please subscribe and please tell your friends. But you can also use ChatGPT and plug in those things and ask for careers and keep working the prompt till it comes out. You got lucky because you have all the building blocks for being an entrepreneur. You have all the building blocks for running a business and building blocks for doing sales and management and leadership and training. And then somebody came to your class and made an announcement. So you just, you got lucky and it found you. That's what happened to me too. I was going to be a lawyer. And then my buddy's like, you should try this out. I didn't know what business was, but I know I wouldn't love law because I don't pay attention to details and I don't follow the rules and I don't like authority. That's a kind of a bad mixture. So you and I both got lucky. And so what year were you in school when you did the College Works gig?
Yeah, it was my second semester of sophomore year. Actually, the first semester that we had in-person classes back like fully in session. So perfect timing.
Let me guess. So wait a second. Tell me your parents' names again.
Josh and Michelle.
I was going to say Michelle. So Josh and Michelle have their kid go to college after this whole COVID thing to get an engineering degree that he changes to a supply chain management degree. You've been working in the Italian food place. It's time for you to go get an internship, and you come in with a stupid painting internship. Did they freak?
Yep.
Would it be defined as a crash?
I would define it as a crash out.
I remember. Dude, wait, let me ask for the parents listening, and not very many parents listen. Do all parents crash out?
Yeah, everyone has their moments. I would say so. Yes.
So some have it more than others. And I'm on the higher scale. Okay. So John and Michelle are freaking out because you're going to do this dumb painting thing, and you're going to college. And why would you be a painter? And did they ever get on you about working too hard? I know they didn't.
No, they did not. Well,
I knew they didn't. Shout out to Josh and Michelle. Yellow card to all the other parents that tell their kids to stop working so hard. I knew they wouldn't do that. So they didn't like the idea of it at first. And then they saw you working your ass off and they started to like it.
So a little bit of background. I didn't actually bring it up to them until I was kind of like probably a decent way through the interview process, and kind of not until I was really prompted, just because, I didn't want to embarrass myself and tell them like, oh, hey, I got this opportunity. And it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. That's what I did, by the way, with Jill. I never told anybody I was dating her because every girl I'd ever kissed, I broke up with within seconds, and I didn't want to screw up the family relationship. We waited 6 or 7 months.
Nice. Yeah, no. So when I told them, it's kind of funny. There was 2 angles, like rationality behind it. So for one, my dad, a little background about him back in his working days in the kind of corporate world. He was actually a mortgage dealer before the crisis and whatnot, before 2008. And he sales was completely up his alley, and he was a big people person, and math and science was not his strong suit. My mom was essentially the opposite. So yeah, my dad kind of came from the angle of like, hey, I don't think you're going to enjoy this sales thing. Like, you just, don't strike me as someone who can, get out there. And he would tell me like, all the time, I was the dumbest smart kid that he'd ever met, because making fun of my street smarts and just my ability to talk. And I've grown a lot, obviously, since, my kind of more engineering stereotype personality might suggest. And then on the other end, so I have, my dad in my left ear saying, you're probably not going to like sales or whatever.
Parenting out of fear. If you're listening right now, it's because your parents love you. They think they know you, and usually they know you better than you know yourself. But in this one case, maybe it was a little fear in there, and he was worried his son was going to get hurt instead of having him try it, which I've done that so many times. Oh, what if he fails? Let's not let him try it. Well, you tried it anyway, and you didn't fail.
Yeah. And then my mom came from the other opposite end of the spectrum with just like the whole likelihood of success in general, not even if I'd like it. But she was telling me, she's like, hey, like, it's COVID. People are still getting paid stimulus checks right now, thousands of dollars just to sit on the couch. Like, you're not going to find workers.
And she was right about that. It was hard to find workers.
Yeah. And she said, I actually had an uncle who is a local painter, and they're like, your uncle is struggling to get his own clientele. Like, what makes you think you're going to be able to come in here as someone who's never even been in the industry and
Yeah,
find
yeah,
clientele?
yeah, yeah.
So there's all these different objections and reasoning and rationale. And I told
Because
them,
it's the journey, not the
yeah,
destination. And if
yep,
you set up a higher standard for yourself, you're going to run this six-figure business. You put the effort in, you go past your limit, you might be successful.
yeah. And then what it ultimately came down to, because obviously every kid I think wants to have their parents support through anything, right?
Mhm.
And what it came down to, and what I told them, I said, okay, well, mom, dad, I appreciate you looking out for me.
Oh
Obviously, as good
no. Oh
parents, that's
no.
what you're
This is
doing.
you're going to do the line. Don't do the line.
But
But
I told them, I go, there's two scenarios that matter. Either I don't do this, and it was because of the reasons that you told me, and I'll, always sit left wondering, whether it would have worked out or not, or I do it, and you guys are right, and I fail miserably, and I would have, figured it out. And I told him, I was like, I would rather do this and knowing that it wasn't the right fit for me and knowing that I gave it at least the chance it deserved than not doing it at all and always left wondering, sleeping at night, what could have been.
oh,
So
I hate that. Okay, you get another yellow card. This is, by the way, I found my yellow card, so that's why
there
I'm
you
giving
go.
you something else. But you get another yellow card because that's absolutely brutal. Please, if you're listening right now, do not use the line on your parents. I've heard everything you've had to say. I see your opinion. I understand where you're coming from, but I'm not going to listen because of these good reasons. We don't like that. We want to be right all the time. So you told them, you know what I told? Oh, one time my dad called me up because I was having a fight with Jill. I said, look, I'm not going to talk to you for a year because I got to go figure out this Jill thing. Plus, I was losing all my money and all this. Like, I don't have this ability to deal with this stress. So I'm just not going to talk to you for a year. And he's like, okay, never mind. I'm on your side. So
Mhm.
I've had to use those one liners and I have them used up. What did Jake say to me the other day? He goes, look, I already had this conversation with you. Last time you came about halfway to where you are now. And I told you, I'm just not going to talk to you about it until you call me again. And then you'll just do what I want you to do. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there's a transition from being the kid to being the adult.
Oh,
It
yeah.
starts at about 16 years old. So you think it's like from 54 to 60? No, it starts at like 16 years old and goes till you're like 60. And slowly you start having to provide not your parents. Josh and Michelle seem pretty with it. They probably have a good 20 years, but my kids need to start right now. They just start taking over right now and telling me what to do.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So you did the college works thing against your parents' wishes. And I mean, I was there, but I don't remember. Were you instant success or were you like me where you just kind of sucked at first?
No, I definitely had my fair spurt of trials and tribulations. I mean, I was 2.5 hours on the opposite side of the state driving home every single weekend during the freezing
Impossible. Oh, you
cold.
get another yellow card. Can't do that. Can't
Yep.
get good grades, build relationships, have friends, succeed, and drive. Yellow card. That's
Yep.
impossible. You got to
Yep.
stop doing these impossible things.
Yeah, and gas, by the way, was 4.50 a gallon during COVID.
Oh, do
So
you
that
remember what we
was,
did to get the employees? I don't know if you know.
I don't know.
Doubled
No.
our wages. That's what we did.
Oh,
So we
well,
knew it
that'll
was coming.
that'll fix it.
We knew it was coming. Well, that's what, and I am definitely not a Republican right now. I'm an original Republican, but the Democrats tricked us. They gave away all those checks, and then
Yep.
everybody had to raise the minimum wage higher. So they got what they wanted, a higher minimum wage, but that's how we got the employees. We went in the Midwest in certain states. It was like $7 or $8 an hour we were paying in 2019 and
Wow.
$17 an hour in 2021. That's how we
Wow.
changed the comp, changed the sales, changed everything. So you
Yeah.
came in 21, right?
2022 was yeah, no, 22 was my
22
season.
as a
Yep.
sophomore.
Yep.
And so when you look back at those times, and we got people, by the time this airs, there's going to be a lot of interns listening to it. There's also going to be a lot of people in Australia. Shout out to Australia. We love that you like the podcast in Australia. When you look back at kind of that sales season, there's probably something you remember and some
Oh,
lesson
yeah.
you got, some stumbling block, some biggest issue. What was it? What did you learn? What can you tell the people that are going through either the college works internship or some tough job, or they're trying to figure out their life and they don't know what to do and they feel like they're kind of trying to get out of a mine and there's no light at the end of the tunnel? What were
Oh,
your
yeah.
big lessons?
Yeah, no, I would say the big turning point for me in my sales ability and honestly just overall mindset towards the whole entrepreneurial journey was learning how to, I guess, how I kind of coined the term fail gracefully. So I actually struggled with this my entire life, like even all the way back to basketball. Like if I missed a shot during a game, I'm thinking about it the next three, four, 5 possessions, and I'm losing my confidence. Or cause a turnover, and coach yells at me, and it's in my head for the next the rest of the game. And that was also same goes for school, for work, and I brought that with me to sales, which, I think about sales, you got to have a short-term memory when it comes to, whether it's, cold outreach or, conducting sales presentations, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Having no memory
Yeah.
toughens you up. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I realized, what kind of caused that turning point, was embracing the failure and understanding like there's something to be learned from it, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, because, at the end of the day, this was my first time going through all this kind of stuff. And I thought my district manager, when I was working with him, he was, always, again, I've always held myself to this high standard. I wanted to be perfect at it from right from the get go. And when I wasn't, I got really bummed out. And once I figured out, like, wait a second, this is part of the process. And if I want to be perfect, like, failure is going to be part of the journey. That's when I kind of got over it and started actually learning from them. And I was actually excited to fail at some points, figuring it out and actually
As you're
learning from it.
talking, dude, it makes so much sense to me because I'm the same way. You have to do that because as an entrepreneur, you fail so much. So you have to go, okay, I failed, and not beat yourself up. Nope, anybody would have failed. You know how I do that. I grab it, I look at it.
Yep, grab it and throw it away.
Anybody would have failed, throw it away. But you have to do even more. What did I learn from it? How am I better? How am I stronger? And then you start
Yep.
like I love it at our office. Like I want a culture of people that fail. And I don't want
Yeah.
them to fail over and over the same way, but I want them to try and fail because there's so much to be learned from that. I think
Yeah.
that's so. So you learned to fail gracefully. I didn't know what you were talking about. I thought you were gonna like my nephew in swimming. He was like top 10 in the nation. He would punch brick walls if he didn't win and freak out and go crazy.
Yeah,
You're not
that's a
talking.
crash out.
Yeah, you're not talking about a crash out. You're not talking about an external thing. You're talking about your mind screwing yourself, thinking about stuff, and then the next customer can read it in you, and they can tell you're
Hmm.
nervous. So you
Hmm.
learn to go, no, no, this is a learning lesson. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to learn from it and move on. Do you do meditation, by the way?
I don't, but I do pray often, and like, do have a lot of self
Are
reflection
you
in that
meditative
regard.
when you pray?
Yeah, one hundred
So
percent.
when you pray, do you have other thoughts come into your mind and you have to dismiss those thoughts and get to what you're praying on?
Yeah, yeah, acknowledge them and kind of dismiss them one hundred
So, yeah,
percent.
so your prayer is meditating on something. And a lot of
Yeah.
prayer is meditation. But if you're listening right now, we got all these negative thoughts going through our head, and they will convince you that you're a loser and you'll never do anything. You have to fight them. And I like to say I grab them and discount them, which is what you just said.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
what you're talking about is you got to look for the good as well in what's
Hmm.
happening bad. So I lost all my money one time. It didn't feel very good to anybody around me, but man, I got a lot of lessons out of it. And would I change that? No, Jill would. Jill would. I think I wouldn't. I think I would go through it again. And then you learn to feel that way. And it's also a wonderful place to be when you just think you're perfect. And no, no, I'm not a loser. Everybody would do that. And you just convince yourself that you become more confident through discounting negativity and through embracing failure. I love that.
Yeah.
So, what was the failure? You couldn't book a job, or
I will never forget this phone call. It was after I called my district manager and I asked him for advice on how to book the job. I kind of gave him the lowdown, like, hey, here's what's going on, so on and so forth. Like, what do you think I should do? And he gave me some piece of advice. And the advice that he gave me, it was hard advice because it would make me uncomfortable if I tried it. Like, the advice that he gave me and what I should have said or what have you just was totally outside of my comfort zone. And I remember hanging up with that phone call and sitting there and kind of like consulting myself, like, okay, well, here's what I thought I should do, and here's what my district manager told me. And I rationalized it, and I ended up taking my own advice, and I didn't book the sale. And then my district manager, it was actually my last estimate of the day. So I had that long 2.5 hour drive home. And my district manager calls me like a good manager would. Hey, how'd the estimate go? What happened? And, I told him, yeah, I didn't book it, and I threw kind of the, excuse factory at him. And he goes, well, wait a second. Did you take my advice? Did you say what I said to say?" And I go, and then I had another choice. I could either lie to him, knowing that I made the wrong
That's That's
mistake,
great.
or I could tell him the truth. Even though, like, again, in my head, I'm like, well, I know that I screwed up and I probably should have taken his advice. But if you know anything about me, I hate lying. It's like I'm first of all, I'm a terrible liar, and second of all, that's like
Yeah.
one of my number one values is trust.
Yeah.
So I took a deep sigh and I told him, "Yeah, I did not say what you said," and he just completely blew up on me.
That's
And
not
again,
right
like,
either.
no, it's not. Well, no, he had every right to, because I had a track record of not listening to him. So
Oh,
it wasn't like the first time he caught me not listening to him. And it was a good blow up. He was like, "Dude, like, I want you to do well and we're in this thing together and you just keep making these same mistakes. Like, when are you going to learn?"
yeah.
And I
Well,
thought I was just
evidently it worked.
yeah, in complete hot water. And then I remember I hung up the phone, and now this drive felt even twice as long. And then probably halfway through, when I was almost all the way back, I called him back, and I told him, I'm like, "Hey, I'm really sorry. You're right. I'm not happy with where I'm at. I should be listening to you. Like, I really haven't. Like, you think I haven't been listening to you? I'll tell you how much I haven't been listening to you." And he's like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. Are you gonna quit?" I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna quit. I'm telling you, I'm ready to listen. I'm
I
ready
know
to
that's
start
a way
working with
a
you."
way better choice. If you're not doing it right because you think you know everything, maybe you listen to the expert and try again. So I mean
Yeah,
that goes back to you, it's not a destination, it's a journey. And I
yeah,
mean, all in the College Works program, we print up the thing and you're going to sell and you're going to sell $20,000 things and those things don't exist. So you're going to learn how to do conceptual sales and then you're going to manage people and you're going to manage them in different places at the same time. And you don't really know what you're doing, but you're still going to do a good job. So you know you're going to learn marketing and sales and all that crap. That's not what we learn. That's
yeah,
everybody. What we learn is not in the book. So you learned to fail gracefully because you screwed everything up and that was your failure. And then from now on, you got to some advice you don't take, but you talk it through. You don't tell people you're going to take their advice and
right.
then not take it. You talk it through and get the best advice. Okay, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty good lesson. Any other lessons? Maybe a good summer lesson after you made it through the sales cycle. And most people, like half the people, suck in the beginning and then they got to get through. I was that way. I would prefer to suck in the beginning and then get good than to
Yeah,
be good and then suck. But you're one of the two. You're one of the two. You're going to have
yeah,
a bad period somewhere.
yeah. No, I would say production was actually the real reason why I like found interest in the internship in the first
Me
place.
too. Who cares about sales? I wanted to
Right.
boss people around and be
Yeah.
the man.
Exactly. And ironically enough, I
Doesn't
like
work that way.
at least reflecting back on my intern year, I like, at least at the time, I would say I like management more now, but at the time I would say I actually thought that sales was my favorite season, even though like my dad said I was going to hate it. I thought I was going
Mhm.
to suck at it. And, maybe that's because that was where the most growth came from. But I remember just for some reason, just thinking to myself, I was just going to kind of steamroll through projects and just like completely, set myself up and, I'm going to hire great guys and train them well. And a lot of that did happen eventually, but there's definitely a learning curve there. And I think the biggest thing, and it's kind of cliche advice, but I think it's cliche for a reason. But people are going to follow the leader that leads by example. And I led by example really well for like the first month, showing up at 6:30, getting everything ready, making sure that everything was, the work orders made, the safety plan, the task list, all of it was perfectly accounted for. And once I started getting things kind of going efficiently, I started slipping a little bit, right? So then I'm like, "Hey, crew chief, you can show up in the morning at,
Yeah.
6:30 and start doing these things, and I'm going to show up at 7:30 and
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I'm sleeping in a little bit, and all of a sudden, now your crew chiefs are sleeping in. Your jobs aren't
What do
starting
you
until
know?
9
Being the
a.m.
boss isn't easier. It's harder.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no,
I mean, I did the
100%.
same thing, by the way. I stopped showing up. Like before, I'm there all the time. I had 3 crews. I'm bouncing around. And then, I started to see success. So I would go mountain biking. And they knew I was going mountain biking because I had the bike on my car. So
Yeah,
I would disappear for 2 hours. And it was always from like 11 to 1 ish. Found out years later that they took a 3 hour lunch every day, because they knew that's the difference between being the boss and not being the boss. Like I still work
oof,
15 hours a day. I just
yeah,
took a little break to go exercising.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty cool.
100%. No, and with the crew thing too. At the end of the summer, because we went through the beginning and then fixing that mistake in the middle of, hey, like, okay, crap, maybe I do need to take some accountability and start showing up again, and kind of leading by example. I can't just set the precedent for the first month and not expect it to go well for the rest. I remember one of my buddies that I hired. He told me by the end of the summer, and I hired a bunch of my friends, but only the ones that I knew could work hard and I could count on. And I remember him saying, "Yeah, there is no way we would have done this summer painting thing with you, like, as your crew members, if you were not our boss. Like if you weren't the one doing it." And I thought
That's
there to
cool.
myself
That's
for a
cool.
second.
That's cool.
Well, I took it as a kind of a backhanded, like, we would have, quit this job. Like, this is how bad the job is. And then, like, later I kind of sat on it and I realized, I'm like, wait, no, that is pretty cool. And he told me later, he's like, yeah, no, I mean, we saw what you believed in and what you were doing this
Yeah.
for and what it meant to you. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, the work was really hard, and maybe we didn't think the pay was worth it, but it was because we were fulfilling your dreams and we knew
Right.
how
We were
much you
building a
cared about
culture.
this.
The
Yeah.
pay's never
So
worth it. Never worth it.
exactly.
You do it out of passion and you happen to get paid. Let me ask you a question. I know we're running out of time. What's the difference? So you worked in a couple companies. You were doing a lot of the same stuff. You worked here, you were doing the same stuff. You were kind of running
Yeah.
at least half the business. What's the difference between owning it and working at it?
Owning it and working at it. I think owning it is you're tracking it, and it's you're measuring it, and working at it is maybe more of like the kind of check in check out, saying like, hey, just to say that you did, or that you did try. And owning it is like, okay, I tried it, maybe it didn't work the first or second time. Learn from that failure, fail
No, I mean
gracefully.
the company. I mean the company. What's
Oh,
the difference between just working at the company that you
okay.
did 2 years ago and owning the company? What's the difference about your role? Is there any difference in the
Oh
day to
man.
day for the listener that wants to be an entrepreneur one day? I heard one. I watched one. She watched. By the way, if you're listening right now, I forget what her name is. Maybe it was Jordan or Jaden, but she's from Nebraska. I told all the people I watched this interview, and I watched a few interviews, that this is the manager of the year. I think she'll be a $500,000 manager. She wants to own dental clinics one day. She doesn't want to be a dentist. She likes medicine, but she wants to own dental clinics, and not be a dentist at the dental clinic. What's the difference in your role, your day to day, and other things now that you own it and the buck stops with you and you're the head dude?
I'm very grateful to say that the switch from what college works gave me, all the way when beginning as an intern, and then eventually a district manager, general manager, then a VP, primed me up very well for what was to be expected when I did finally own it. So I was very, very lucky to say that I did get a lot of that early exposure. And honestly, like, my attitude, like, having that kind of ownership mindset, even though I didn't really have, like, I guess the equity in the game or what have you, I still treated it as if I did.
No, your
And I
attitude
think
hasn't changed.
and I think that was probably the most important thing. And again, I guess more on the logistics side of things, like the day to day, like, again, I think the attitude and the mindset of, okay, hey, like, I have certain goals I need to accomplish in a day. And it's maybe not so much like a 9 to 5 where it's like, okay, you just got to hit your quota, or, check the boxes or whatever. You got to make your own check boxes. You got to make your own goals. And it's a lot more self directed. But if you create those systems, that's when you're going to be able to kind of not get, I guess, kind of lost in all the white noise, if you will,
So
now
your
owning it.
your role, your day to day, your other is all the same, because your attitude was the same when you didn't own it. You had the I own it
Yeah.
attitude, which is the right answer, right? I didn't know that that was the right answer until you said it, but that's the right answer. If you
Yeah.
want to own it one day, you better act like you own it today. If you want
Yeah.
to own it one day, don't tell me it's somebody else's job. Just do it. Don't tell me it's 5 o'clock. Just stay. Don't tell me how many hours you worked. I don't care, because
Right.
nobody I associate with cares. If it's a charity and I'm working for free and I'm donating money to work there, I'm going to work 100%.
Yeah.
How you do one thing is how you do everything. And that's the difference between you and a normal person,
Yep.
is that you have the attitude, you own it or not. You're the guy that picks up the trash in the parking lot, whether you own the business or not. All right. I got to get one more thing out of you, then I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
There's something that happened in your 20s. And at the time, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to do this. What a huge sacrifice. And when you look back, you're like, oh my God, thank God I made that sacrifice. What a rewarding experience that was. I had no idea. What is that for you?
Yeah, I honestly think it was what my expectations were of college and what like college was actually meant to be. Like the cliches are, make new friends, party, hang out, join clubs, and it's kind of just like a whole fun zone. And the saying goes, "Oh, college are the best 4 years of your life." And we say it all the time, like that's not a great life if the college are the best 4 years of your life, right? Like imagine
Yeah, we do say that all
graduating.
the time. Yeah,
Imagine
not many people
graduating,
say that, but we say that. Yeah, it should
right?
get better every year.
Yeah, imagine graduating and looking back and being like, "Well, that was it. That was the
Yeah,
best.
imagine
It's
being
all downhill from
60.
here."
I haven't had good times for 40 years. Now make it.
Uh, so anyway, I think that was probably the thing that really opened up my eyes was, kind of the idea of do what you have to do now so you can do what you want to
Mm,
do later. Right. So if that means sacrificing the weekends and not, making every single social event, but, instead you're using your time doing things that most other people aren't, whether it's, building a business or doing an internship or whatever the case might be. It was this idea of like, I need to make meaningful steps now so that my future can kind of pave itself rather than, I'd rather be the kid that was making meaningful steps, even though I didn't know what I want to do in my future, rather than the opposite, saying, I know what I want to do in my future, but I'm not taking the right steps toward it right now.
mm.
So that for me was kind of the most important thing was just making the right steps and spending
Okay.
time where
A
most others
lot of it,
don't.
it wasn't missing the trip to Europe. It was a lot of little misses where you invested your time, didn't spend your time. Okay, we're gonna let you go. We got to do a shout out to Josh and Michelle. By the way, Josh and Michelle, I know Tyler really well, and I know his significant other. You did a good job. I have one question for you before you go, Tyler. Do you know what this is?
I do know what that is.
What is this?
It looks like a ring.
What type of ring do you think it is?
If I had to guess, that looks like a wedding ring.
Oh, are you planning on buying any wedding rings for anybody anytime soon? Because you know who wants to know? Josh and Michelle want to know.
Oh yeah. No, I'm sure they would like to know. We'll have to see and wait
Well, you
for
can keep
a
searching all over
timeline.
for whatever you're searching for. You can do what I did and just get married early and live a happy life because when you got a good significant other, everything's better. Well, not everything. Most years, everything's better. You get bad years too. Well, Tyler, thanks so much for making time. Josh and Michelle, thanks so much for sending your kid to work with us. We love him. He's come up with some of the best ideas. I mean, we were talking about one of your ideas from last year, the photo contest thing. Some of the
Oh yeah.
best ideas that anybody's ever come up with. Tyler, thanks for being excellent. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for being on the Edge of Excellence.
Thanks, Matt.